In the next edition of It's About Money, my guests are Gasbarre and Evan Wilcox. We're going to talk about internships and the role of internships in preparing for a career path. Join us in the next edition of It's About Money. Hello and welcome to another edition of It's About Money. I'm Nannette Nocon and thank you for joining us. I'm excited to have in our program today Gasbarre and Evan Wilcox joining us to talk about their experience in interning during their college education. So we'll start with you, Mason. So thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And talk to us about the motivation that you had to look for an internship.
Yeah, so I entered college and COVID kind of happened, obviously. So I was looking for a way to get ahead of my peers, and I figured the best way to do that is in an office setting rather than another educational setting. So I reached out to a lot of places, and an internship in finance was something that was motivating to me because I really enjoyed learning about the subject, and I was able to come away with a lot of different experiences in that internship that helped enhance that joy of finance for me.
That sounds great. Evan, what motivated you to look for an internship?
So what motivated me was I saw my peers around me. I was the only junior in a lot of senior classes. I saw them getting a lot of internships, getting a lot of experience from things outside of the classroom. And that really motivated me to push myself in order to get ahead of the juniors in my class. I saw how the seniors interacted with each other, how they put themselves out there, and I just thought I could replicate that.
Very impressive. That's great. And what did you hope to gain from the experience of the internship? So Mason, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I've recognized that learning in a classroom can be a little bit textbookish and not necessarily conducive to what happens in the real world. So I wanted to be able to apply some of those principles and see how it works out in an actual office setting and with real people. So I think the internship provided a lot of that for me, taking away what clients are doing and what terms and other things that you learn. It was a great experience in that regard.
And your major, talk to us about your major.
Yes, I was a financial planning major and an economics minor.
Okay, great. So then your internship was a financial planning internship?
Yes.
Yes, okay, great. And what about you, Evan?
So along the same lines as Mason, I was a finance major. I was in the same financial planning track that he was talking about. What I hoped to gain was really experiencing what goes into financial planning beyond what's in the textbooks and the PowerPoints. Along with what Mason mentioned, there were a lot of classes that were just point and click, write down notes, and we weren't really understanding all the intricacies of financial planning, meeting clients, what goes into client prep, what happens behind the scenes, and things of that nature.
Got it. So just a practical sense. And then did you find the things that you learned come alive? Like the practicality of it? Do you see or some of what you learned be in the textbook or the classes? Did that happen?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of things that you hear and you read about and it doesn't quite make sense, and then you see it used in the real world and someone can sit down and explain to you the tax advantages of this or the estate planning advantages of that. And it all kind of meshes together once you see it used in an individual instance.
Yeah, well, that's terrific. So, basically, you started as an intern and then worked your way up. How did the internship help you with your career?
For me, I think the biggest thing was being comfortable in an office. It's very different. It's a different environment and a different setting than anything I had been used to. That professionalism was something that I needed to hone in on. And my communication skills, my email writing, all of those sorts of things that go into a day-to-day office setting has really helped me propel my career.
Oh, that's great. And you just recently graduated.
Just recently graduated, yes.
May 2023. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
That's great. And how did that feel, having experience behind you and graduating? I mean, how did that feel compared to your peers?
I felt very comfortable. My friends, some of my friends are scrambling a bit which is not a bad thing. They're 21 and they have plenty of life ahead of them. But for me, I feel solidified in knowing that I have experience that I can draw upon in future interviews or in just my career as it stands currently.
Yeah, that's great. Evan, how did you land on your internship?
So I looked for internships through my peers and using, my network at Fisher. Thankfully I had somebody that was nice enough to put in a good word for me, and that really took my internship to the next level. They were nice enough to give me that opportunity to put themselves out there and, put some of their reputation on the line in a way. I feel like, gaining an internship is something that everybody should experience. But at the same time, you cannot put, a ton of pressure on yourself to, get ahead of everybody else. It's fine to do things your own way sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Sure, sure. But I think it's worth trying, right?
Right, 100%.
Yeah, yeah. I feel bad when students graduate and they don't have any experience at all in the field that they've studied. Because, like, how do you know that that's really, what you like? So, anyways. And what have you learned so far? That because you're still in school, right? You're graduating in December, or is it May?
May. I have 1 semester left.
Okay.
But I'm going to push the graduation to the spring.
And graduate with your peers. Yeah, there's something. So May 2024.
2024, yes.
Okay, great. So what have you learned so far that will prepare you, think, for your career?
I've learned, more than I can imagine, honestly. Every day there's something, there's a new challenge that you might not know all the details to, but, using collaboration in the office has been a great help. You learn from people that have been in the industry for longer than you, and being that sponge that soaks in, almost every bit of information that you could possibly take in has really, I feel like, propelled my career in the right direction. Like Mason brought up earlier, office etiquette, communication skills, dressing professionally was something that, I had almost never worn a tie before this in my entire life. So learning how to tie a tie, that could be something that I honed in on. But in my past, I really have never worked in a professional setting like this. And I feel like learning those little intricacies, for what it takes to, present yourself the right way, things like that, that's been very helpful in my life. Sure.
So at least you don't have to take a lot of time in the future to get ready for a tie, right? Because that could delay getting ready.
Right.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Were there any surprises for you in your internship? Like, oh, wow.
I think just going back to the client preparation, I knew there was a lot that went into it, but you really, want to be prepared for every situation. And, you don't want somebody to go into a meeting feeling unprepared and feeling, like they don't know what to expect in a way. And having people to help you out with those meetings is definitely something that I feel like is very valuable.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Mason? What have you learned that was a surprise to you, maybe?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is how much more there is to learn. I think every day I approach it and I try to remain confident in my abilities and my knowledge. However, there's a new thing every day that comes up where you have to do additional research, and I really enjoy that part of my day where I'm constantly learning and trying to find new ways to provide value to a client. So that's definitely my favorite part.
Yeah, that's great. Well, they say anyway, for good brain health, you have to learn something new every day. So I suppose that contributes to good brain health.
Absolutely.
Learning something new every day. And I imagine in the being in the same field, conversations about the changes in the tax law, the markets, just all those different changes, the dynamic, makes it exciting to learn more new things. So I wanted to have both of you talk today about internships, because I wanted to share the value of having an internship. We have many viewers that maybe don't think about it. It's easy to get a job that's just easy to do, but I think there's real meaning to thinking about what one is studying, because after all, you're investing a lot of money, maybe borrowing money to go to school. And if the investment is not what you like, it'd be good to discover that during an internship, right? So what would you say is the value of an internship? Mason, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. It's a great experience to apply your learning and see if it actually meshes well with yourself, right? So for me personally, I had an enjoyment for personal finance. Well, personal finance and a career in finance can be very different. So by taking on internships, I was able to decipher what I liked from this job and what I didn't necessarily like from this job, and how can I cultivate a future that encompasses what I like and not necessarily what I don't like. Mm-hmm. So that, to me, would be the way.
The value of it,
Yeah.
yes. How about you, Evan?
You know, going off of what Mason brought up, I feel like my motivations for getting an internship and the value of an internship were along the same lines, but different in a way. I felt like I'd invested so much into a college degree. You know, when the internship came around, I was like, I really hope I enjoy this, because, you know, I'd put 3 years into it at the time. And, you know, for people that want to understand the value of of an internship, it's the first test of what your degree is going to be like in the real world after you graduate college. And if you find out, you know, you don't mesh well with an internship in your field, maybe it's time to think about going a different direction in terms of your major.
Sure, sure. I mean, the purpose of education is learning how to learn, right? But it would be nice if what you learned actually is applicable to what you do. Frankly, for myself, I went to school for nutrition, so I used to count calories, and I became a financial advisor. So I went to counting on money, which you could have more rather than calories. You can't really have too much, not so healthy. But nonetheless, you know, internships I found was very valuable in my career path. So we have viewers who have children or grandchildren who are in college, you know, about to go to college. What advice would you give to students looking for an internship, and what do you think they should expect? So we'll start with you, Mason.
Yeah, I'll start. I would say to present yourself in a way that you'd be proud of looking back a few years later. It's not easy being 18 or 19 and looking adults in the eye and saying, hey, I don't have applicable experience, but I'd love to learn. So showing that motivation to learn and motivation to improve yourself while also coming across in a humble manner and presenting yourself well is the advice I would give.
So just being transparent, really, the
Absolutely.
desire. Just being honest. I mean,
Yes.
That's what you want to do. I mean, an intern who comes in and says, I've got all this knowledge, is really not. We're going for an internship. Okay, that's fantastic. What about you, Evan? What do you?
I would say being able to use all of the resources available to you. You know, where we go to college, there's a lot of programs that, you know, will put the word out for you. There's a lot of recruitment programs and things like that, a lot of opportunities to get your name out there, get the foot in the door. But what I would say is the most valuable is making those connections, you know, whether that be with people in your classes, people that you've met on campus. You never know when those connections will come full circle, and you'll have to, you know, interact with some person again. And that might be, you know, saying hi in the hallway, stopping for a quick conversation. But when those things come back around, it will be very valuable to, you know their first name, something as simple as that.
Sure. And even if the person can't make a connection, what's the worst that could happen? You just said hello and met the person, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I always think that there's nothing lost by meeting somebody,
Exactly.
saying hello. What's the worst they could do? Say no, right? And they might think of someone. I could think of people that I met and I said, well, I'm sorry, there are no opportunities. And then opportunities came up. But if I didn't meet them or they didn't introduce themselves, I wouldn't have known them, you know. So it's always worth asking and finding out. So, and that's the role of networking. So that's great. So and Evan, you're also at St. John Fisher University,
Correct,
right? And,
correct.
And so in internships, there are many different kinds of internships. Some have college credits for internships. Some are paid internships. Some are volunteer internships. So there are different kinds of internships like that. What would you suggest that people look for? I mean, what would be the kind of internship that would be ideal and
So it's an interesting topic, that's for sure. I've seen a lot of advocates that are pushing for to get rid of unpaid internships because they believe that if somebody is working towards a college degree, they should be compensated at least at a base level for, the work that they're adding and the value that they're adding to a company. But, what I would recommend is to look over your opportunities, that's for sure. Pick a company that you can relate with and that you believe has, good values, good atmosphere, things like that. But at the same time, you aren't really in a position of leverage where you can be picky, You're, at that point, you're just looking for experience. You can't really pick between unpaid or paid. If you have an unpaid internship and that's your only option, you kind of would like to take that one.
Got it. So actually, we'll take a quick break. I just realized the time. So we'll take a quick break and we'll come back to the conversation. My guests are Mason Gasbarre and Evan Wilcox, and we're talking about internships while in college. And my name is Nannette Nocon. It's about money. We'll be right back.
Matthew.
Huh? Oh. I know that a lot of times, Mom, it might not seem like I'm listening to you, but I am. And what you say really does matter to me.
All the talks we've had over the years, including what you've told me about not using alcohol and other drugs, they stick with me, and they make a difference, especially at times that matter most.
Hey, want a drink?
No thanks, I'm good. So thank you, Dad, for preparing me for what's ahead.
Thanks, Mom, for always being my biggest fan.
Thank you for talking.
Talk. They hear you.
And we're back. I'm Nannette Nocon. It's about money. My guests today are Mason Gasbarre and Evan Wilcox, and we're talking about the value of internships during college. So, and thank you again for being here. Appreciate you both. So, Mason, let's talk about it. We're talking about paid, unpaid internships, college credits, and things like that. What would you suggest? What's ideal, and what's out there?
I would say identify your objective at the start of the internship. Most universities or colleges require college credits for internships. I know St. John Fisher did for us, and in some instances you'll be lucky enough to be paid and get your college credits. If your objective is strictly to learn as much as possible and you're willing to do that at an unpaid level, and you have a great opportunity in front of you, then by all means I would recommend to take that. But I think for me, part of the allure to working as an intern was to receive compensation for my work and help build myself financially as I'm paying through school, as I'm, growing and have expenses in my life. So in general, if you can identify your objectives and see what the true value of what you're looking to do has, then it'll be an easier decision for you.
Sure, it's actually time saving too, right? Instead of getting another job and then getting experience, if you can get some payment for the job experience, that would be ideal, right?
Absolutely.
Exactly.
But on the other hand, if it doesn't exist, you get an experience, and then for the next internship, you could use it as leverage to hopefully get paid. Right?
Absolutely.
So, but you're right, it's just whatever opportunity comes up, but if you can double up, that would be great. The college credit, of course, is wonderful that Fisher does that. So, all right. So networking. Let's talk about networking. You briefly talked about that, talking down the hall when you define networking in a way. So Mason, let's talk about networking. What role has that played in networking, in finding an internship and in your college career and then graduating and a job? What does networking?
Yeah, absolutely. So networking has played a large role. Mostly in the way that everyone does things differently. And so talking with professors about how they handle certain things, day-to-day tasks, and seeing how they approach things has helped me implement that in my practice and what I do day to day. So, just learning different perspectives from different people and trying to leverage those relationships in a way that's conducive to both of you, I think is an absolutely important skill.
Mm-hmm. So networking with professors and people could teach you.
And peers, yes.
And peers as well. What about you, Evan?
So to add on to that, I've met a lot of professors that are actually certified financial planners. We have a lot of adjunct professors at St. John Fisher. And I think if you can take, the best advice that they can give you from each person and kind of mold it into yourself, and then that's what creates, your individuality. I think if you can combine all those different aspects, it could be how somebody interviews clients, a certain thing that they ask them, a certain thing that they make a point to bring up. If you can add that into yourself, that's what creates, your own individuality, like I said before.
Absolutely. I think you define yourself by hearing from a lot of people, and you make your own. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, networking. So were there any challenges or obstacles during your internships, and how did you overcome? So,
one challenge that I would have faced and that I think I've overcame this far was just finding where I fit in an office. I feel like if you can stay motivated and, interject your personality into the other personalities of the office and find your spot, I feel like it can be an easy challenge to overcome, but it can also be intimidating at first. You might feel lost, you might feel like you're being annoying or things of that sort, but as long as you ask as many questions as possible, I feel like it's pretty easy to find where you can fit in.
So asking questions is very important. Yeah,
Very
I
important.
find that in anything in life, they always say that the person with the questions win more than the person with the answers, right? Because questions is unlimited, but answers you run out. So, but the question's good. How about you, Mason? Were there any challenges or obstacles during your internship?
The biggest challenge I would point to was the time commitment, which I didn't mind at all. But, there would be times where I had friends saying, hey, let's go golf, or hey, want to go study with me? And I have a day-to-day task of being in the office and making sure that I get my work done. And it's not as simple as maybe another job where you can call out every day. I'm sick. I enjoy my job and I enjoyed my internship and I wanted to be there and to continue to learn. But there were times where maybe I missed out on some fun or maybe some educational things. In the long run, I would do that every time. I would make that same decision again.
But hopefully now you're not having to look for a job.
Yes.
They can have more time with fun.
Correct.
So that's good. So that's great. Yeah, I wonder that, because if you're always studying or not making room for fun, but hopefully be able to interject the fun. That's life, right? A balance. Balance is always important. So are there any missed opportunities that a fellow student would have had if they didn't pursue an internship during school?
I would say yes. I feel like if you graduate with your degree and you are first applying for that beginner job, and you find out after the internship's over, you're like, I don't want to do this anymore. You could have completely avoided that situation if you had taken the initiative. In your sophomore or junior year, you would have had more wiggle room to figure out where you fit in the workforce.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I would say the missed opportunity is the practical day-to-day knowledge that comes with working in an office and interacting with other people that are of the credentials that you want to be like rather than the credentials of a college student or peer who is still developing and learning and try to make their way themselves. So that practical ability is something that you can't replicate in a classroom, and that experience is very valuable, I find.
And if you walk back to school, I know you're still at school, but if you were the guest speaker and you're the financial advisor talking to your the students now, what would you say? What would you say to the students?
Yeah, I would say to put yourself out there, to try a lot of different things, and I would say to try different internships. I was lucky to work in 2 offices at my time in college, and I drew from different experiences at both. One I liked more, one I didn't like so much, and now I know moving forward that there are certain qualities of a job that I prefer and don't prefer that I would have never known if I didn't do 2, not only one. So.
Yeah. I think it's really important to know that, especially I think in this career, as a financial advisor, the statistics are not so great, right? Only 1 out of 5 stay in the business because it's a very challenging position, but it's also rewarding, but they're very challenging, so. And you're not quite graduated yet, but in the hallways, when you see other colleagues, other students, what advice would you be giving them?
One question that I always get asked is, what do you do day to day? And I feel like getting my peers to understand that you don't just jump right into facing clients, day one. There's a lot of work that has to go in behind the scenes, and I feel like fleshing that out at a deeper level would be very helpful to my peers because, when I was in that same position, I didn't really understand the intricacies of the financial planning business as a whole. They don't really tell you all the stuff that you have to do before and after. They kind of just present it as, oh, you're managing other people's money. Well, you can't do that without certain certifications. You can't do that without networking, first off. So I feel like, I could just flesh that out a little more for people that are wondering about it.
Okay. And in this career, Mason, what are the requirements to actually meet with clients? There's some certifications that Evan alluded to. What are those?
Yeah, so you start with the base licenses of the Securities Industry Essential. That is a new FINRA rule that you have to pass that test to become eligible to take the Series 7 and Series 66. Those are interchangeable to a certain degree. You could have a Series 6 and only sell variable annuities or life insurance. And then there's also the New York State life, accident, and health insurance license. You would have to have a license for that in each state in which you sell insurance. I don't have to tell you this, you know this. But these different licenses, there are certain employment requirements, there are certain tests that you have to take, and it's hard to navigate that on your own. It's nice to have a team of people that have done it before you and can help you walk through that.
And while the insurance one, we know, but then our audience, good for them to know, the insurance you could take on your own without sponsorship, but the other, an SIE, the basic exam, you don't need to have a sponsor, but the other exams, Series 7 and Series 66, you would need a firm to sponsor you as well. So, and you're preparing for those exams as we speak right now.
Yes,
right?
I am. I would say that getting the base exams out of the way as quick as possible can definitely give you a huge leg up on anybody that's in your same age range. And to do them in school as well, because you still have that motivation, you're like, I got to go study for this test. And when you're out of school, you kind of lose that motivation a little bit. So just keeping with the same pace in school is very important.
Sure. So a lot of people graduate and then they have to earn a living. So they're studying for the exam, building a client base, learning how to give advice. Imagine doing all of that without the safety net of school. At least at school, you don't have to have a good apartment, right? You can kind of at least, a little bit less expenses, right? So you could prepare for it. And I don't know how many of your peers in your graduating class are licensed by the time.
None that I know of.
Yeah.
None that I know of at Fisher. I have heard of individuals that graduate with the CFP, so they're
oh my goodness,
they're well above me in that regard.
That's a legendary.
Yes, that's very impressive, and I congratulate those. But
yes,
yeah, to get licensed in college, I think is a supreme advantage that not a lot of people have.
Yeah, that's unique. So that's great. Well, it's been a delight to talk to you both. I hope that we've educated our viewers about and inspired them to hopefully look for, talk to young people about getting internships, because I think there's a huge value to doing that to get ready for the career. The sooner you do it, the better. Of course, there's fun that's got to be interspersed in there, because that's life has to be fun, right? But I think that preparing and being smart and wise about the use of our college resources is very important. So thank you. So thank you very much, Mason Gasbarre. Thank you very much, Evan Wilcox. Appreciate you being here. And thank you, our guests, for joining us. My name is Nannette Nocon. It's About Money. And until next time.